just because something's a quid doesn't mean you need to say it's not A, great value, and B, it tastes great. It doesn't. It's like,
Right.
oh, it's only a quid, I won't put that much effort. You just need to put the same effort into something that's 50p in a quid as you do to something that's a fiver, and then you can get great innovation. Because great innovation to a customer just means they've got the right price point, the best product that they were looking for because we knew they were looking for it, and it tastes amazing, and they come back and buy it. That to me is great innovation.
So, welcome to another episode of the Innovate Podcast, a show where we dissect and rebuild the world of product innovation within consumer goods. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by David Lennox, product innovation legend, worked for multiple retailers in the UK food and drink scene, chef extraordinaire, fellow lover of craft beer. Welcome to the Innovate Podcast, David. How are you today?
I'm very well, thanks for that introduction, Ben. You were only right about one thing on that list, and that was fellow lover of craft beer. But anyway, yeah,
So-
good to be here. Thanks for having me.
No, our pleasure. So, in that case, just tell us a little bit about yourself for the listeners, first of all, so they know who you are, what your background is, and how you've got to where you are today.
Who am I? So I'm a chef. That's kind of basically it. I always wanted to be a chef, and I started in a local restaurant, and I always wanted to work in Michelin. So I was lucky enough to kind of be in a team that got a Michelin star when I think I was 19, 20, and
Right.
well,
Wow.
first 8 months I was there. So I worked in some really chateaus. I had an opportunity to open my own restaurant, which I did for 6 years, and we got really good critical acclaim. And then I kind of found myself in development. A few of my friends were in it, or colleagues that I'd worked with in the past, and I sort of semi-kept in touch with them. So it kind of intrigued me a bit. And then I was lucky enough, I went to Bakkavor, and from Bakkavor, I got the opportunity to go to Waitrose. And from Waitrose, I met a lovely man called Neil Nugent. And he took me to Morrison's, and then from Morrison's I had the opportunity once after about 4 years to come to Iceland. So that's the short, sharp story.
Awesome. Very impressive.
Luck more than judgment, believe me.
So just to kind of get into the groove, we'll do some rapid fire questions before we get into the main topic of innovation. So you've you know the UK food market very well. What would you say is your favourite town or city in the UK for food from an eating out perspective?
Right, we were in London last week, and London's amazing. But I have to say, my favourite place at the moment is Manchester. Gone
Right.
are the days where you need to go to London to see everything. I mean, it's so diverse there. From if you want, from the Brewskis, if you want an amazing burger, from Mackie Mayor's to Escape to Freight Island to Erst, which is amazing district, which does kind of modern Thai, which I went to a few weeks ago, which was unbelievable. And then you've obviously got Mana came in and got a star there, which I think was just what they kind of needed. But I mean, the place in Ducey Warehouse, and I mean, there's amazing places to go. You can't walk down the street without having a good restaurant next to you or somewhere to go. And there may be a reason why Brad Carter opened in Manchester with his one-star kebab, because just the diversity is there. So Manchester is definitely my firm favourite at the moment. But and it does help that I only live 20 minutes away from it. So
yeah, that's true.
It's kind of
that's
easy
true.
to get to.
That's true. As a fellow Mancunian, I would very much endorse that as well. At the moment. So what? Tell us, what would your death row meal be? Your final meal?
Yeah, that's a really, really difficult one. That's a really difficult one. But actually, I kind of thought, and I've been asked this question before. It'd definitely be bread and butter to start, without a shadow of a doubt. Just bread and butter, and with some grilled langoustines out of Loch Lenny. It sounds like I'm going to be very chefy at the moment. There is a second answer to this. And I was lucky enough to go to Paul Bocuse and meet him before he passed away, sadly. But
Right.
there's a poulet bressie en vessie, which means it's cooked in a pig's bladder, and it's a very classic escoffier. but they serve it with a sauce with morels, and they bone it out at the table and everything else, and it's just mind blowing in flavour.
Right.
It just so I'd have that, and I would finish with a raspberry creme brulee, but not your typical raspberry creme brulee. There's I used to work in a place up in the Highlands of Scotland, and there was a lady there called Miss Shaw. Years before we went, she ran the house in the 70s, and she had this recipe for a stovetop creme brulee. So you don't put it in the oven, you cook it to 80 degrees on the top of the stove. It's rammed full of egg yolks. You use frozen raspberries, and then you pour it over, and then you grill it with demerara, and it is just the most indulgent thing in the world. So that would be my chefy answer, and my second slash answer to that would be, and do not judge me, is a raspberry jam and cheese sandwich on crap white bread. Don't judge me. Don't judge me. It's just it's one of those things that I ate when I was younger. You know, and then people talk about sugar sandwiches and all that kind of stuff. Oh, we had sugar sandwiches because we couldn't afford it and everything else. We had raspberry jam and cheese, and it was just, you think about it, cheese and chutney, it's quite similar. But yeah, let's just say I've had people go, what? Raspberry jam and cheese? But it's delicious. Don't knock it till you've tried it.
I intend to not try it. I'm trying not to judge you as well, but yeah, awesome. So on a sort of segueing towards the main topic, what would you say, or what do you say to young people when they kind of speak to you about joining the food industry? I guess kind of we'll concentrate on product development rather than chefing.
Well, that is a really good question. So no one tells you about product development when you want to become a chef. Sure. It's just not out there, and I think we touched on it when we did the last thing with Emma and Bill and the rest of them. We've got to get grassroots in there, and it's great getting the experience, and if you want to become a chef, then please do, but you've got to be committed, and you've got to be prepared to miss birthdays, weddings, bar mitzvahs, any sort of family occasion. You're going to miss at least 90% of them because you won't be getting the Saturday night off. I mean, luckily that's changing, but you just to get young guys who want to be chefs, get your experience, and then but we need to educate where people are getting trained and the colleges to go, well, this is another option, and feed into that, rather than just go, oh well, you become a chef and then we'll speak to you when you're 30. And when you've got your experience. Well, actually, if you give them that goal at the start, they can get their experience and then they'll come in. But yeah, my advice would be just get to college, make sure you want to do it, and then ask the questions. Phone up there's lots of manufacturers and retailers out there. Just send your CV in and you'll get in. But get your experience. Get at least some experience in restaurants first, because that will set you up for the road ahead.
And if you hadn't gone down the kind of the chefing and food industry direction, David, where do you think you would have loved to spend your career?
That is something I have dreamed about on many occasions. If I hadn't, so I was lucky. I knew what I wanted to do, or I had in my head. I don't know how to do it, but I knew I wanted to do it. So I used to spend my evenings and every available moment with a sketch pad in front of me, and I'd just sit there in my room sketching comic books and doing still lifes and so that was my dream when I was younger, was to kind of go into what do you call it, comic book animation and stuff like that. That was my direction, and I wanted to go to art school, and but then for whatever reason the chefing bug kind of took over, and I kind of I have long since given up drawing and painting, but luckily my eldest daughter, who's only 6, has taken on that, and she sits there with a sketch pad all day long and crafting and everything else. So I think I've passed something on there. So I try and encourage it. Other than when the glue goes everywhere, but never mind. Glittery glue.
I did not know that about you. All right, very good. So we're going to move on to the main topic of innovation. Now we're going to kind of pick apart some of the challenges that the industry is facing, and then try and visualize what it could look like in a few years from now. What innovation as a practice needs to do to be kind of fit for the current challenges that we face ourselves in. So if you had to score the UK food and drink innovation sector, I guess for impact of the output, what score would you give it out of 10 and why?
I'd give it 8. I'd give it a high 8, if not approaching on 9, because I think the food and the innovation, we obviously had the COVID word, and that did put a stop to a lot of it. But I think after that, I think a lot of retailers have came back really, really strong, but in the same vein as they've always kind of done. And then we HFSS coupled on top of that, and then the prices going up and everyone else and everybody getting the CPI challenge and all that. But I genuinely do think they've came back quite strong, and there's some great new products out there in different retailers, which is great. Not least of all us, to be fair, But and I'm not going to blow my own trumpet around like that with some of the brands and stuff we do and some of the products. But I genuinely think for having that blocker for 2 years and then coming back, I think some of the retailers have done an amazing job to kind of make up lost ground. But that's just my personal opinion on it. I think there's a lot more to do, and I'm probably being kind on because I'm in that sector. I'm probably being very kind with a high 8, 9. But I just think if you take everything into consideration, I think that especially this summer, I think everybody's quite a lot of them have came back really, really strong, and I'm not going to name any names.
Okay. No, interesting. Well, what do you think the industry could do a bit better from an innovation perspective? You've scored at 8, which is very interesting. Yeah. But hopefully, there's always room for improvement. What sort of
there is.
What practices do you see that you think could be improved?
I am a great believer in this. I genuinely think. I don't think everybody's listening to the customer. I think they're listening to themselves. And, and we deal and we watch a lot of trends and we look at a lot of trends and it's how you decipher those trends and where you see, you don't just look at a nice spreadsheet or a nice email from any of the trend suppliers and go, oh, look, there's Filipino belly pork. We should do that. Well, actually, can you sell Filipino belly pork? Can you do ubi ice cream? Probably not, but so I think you just really need to listen to your customer and the insight, and decipher it right for your business. If you don't, then you're just doing it for vanity, and you're doing it because you can tell you're the fellow developers and buyers. You can go, well, I launched this, but it took $5,000 and got delisted. So it's that. But what do I think they could do better? I really do think they need to listen to customers. Customers first and foremost. That would be my kind of comment on that. I think we all could do that a lot better.
Okay. And so as an industry, we've kind of, well, not as an industry, everybody now really, we've learned from COVID. HFSS was specific to food and drink, but we're now kind of onto the cost of living crisis. How do you think the next kind of 6 to 12 months are likely to impact innovation, given we are in what looks like either a recession or a period of very high inflation and financial concerns for many families?
I think it, and this is just me personally, and sort of my attitude towards it, and what I try and kind of impart on the guys that work for me is we can let it hamper us if we want, or we can actually find a way. Because if and I'll explain this in kind of simple terms, and I've always kind of said it, just because something's a quid doesn't mean you need to say it's not A, great value, and B, it tastes great. It doesn't. It's like, oh, it's only a quid, I won't put that much effort. You just need to put the same effort into something that's 50p in a quid as you do to something that's a fiver, and then you can get great innovation. Because great innovation to a customer just means they've got the right price point, the best product that they were looking for because we knew they were looking for it, and it tastes amazing, and they come back and buy it. That to me is great innovation. So I think we can focus, and it's going to be tough for everybody, and it's not just the lower bracket. It's going to be tough for across the whole spectrum. So I think really, as a team in here, and I can only speak for this team, but I think in general, everybody just needs to look at it's the opportunity to be innovative, rather than go, oh no, we have to take 10p off that, or we need to take 20p off that. Well, how do we get to the same product by not having that 20p to spend? is the
Right.
challenge to kind of guys like me and other teams around the country and retailers and the manufacturer. It's for us to step up and go, right, how are we going to do it? How are we going to make sure the customers get the same price, the same great product, and they're really blown away and they want to come back and buy it? Because everybody's going to have to make choices in the next 6 months about what they buy. And
Yeah.
for us as a retailer, it's, and some of our demographic, it's going to be the choice of turning the lights on, turning the oven on, or turning the heating on. And that is the barefaced, facts of it. Not
Yeah.
everybody's got the luxury of that. So for us, we just really need to make sure we're getting the value in there. It's still great products and it still tastes great. That's kind of the mantra that's running through this place at the moment.
Right. Okay. And is there likely to be some tension between, you from an innovation and product development perspective versus the buyers who are kind of in control of the range and maybe likely to be a bit more kind of conservative and just trying to control cost, do you think? Or is everybody very much in the same boat at Iceland at the moment?
I think with the leadership team here, everybody's in the same boat. To be fair, I think
Okay.
that Iceland itself has been kind of at the forefront of frozen for many years, and ups and
Yeah.
downs and ups and downs. But actually, we know that innovation sells. The right innovation sells. So we know that if you're gonna do something, I mean, we may kind of, and it's sort of, and I've spoken about it before. It's the bullseye product. So we try and develop bullseye products. We don't always get it right, but as long as we're in that bullseye or just round the bullseye, we know we're going to do it. So we haven't got 11,000 SKUs to kind of fill
Mhm.
a whole big supermarket. We're a lot more tighter than that. So actually, I suppose that in that case, we've got the luxury of just going after the big hitters, if you want to call it that, and we don't have to
Right.
worry about the stuff that's going to be the tail.
Okay.
That's probably the best way I can describe it.
Okay. And do you, kind of reflecting on life at Iceland, is it easier to be a bit ballsier, for want of a better description, in frozen than it is in chilled in terms of innovation? I mean, you just the obvious thing. You've got a year, 2 years to sell through things. So if you don't get it quite right, it's not
Well,
quite as dramatic as in chilled. Or is that too blunt an assessment?
no, I think that's a great assessment, to be fair, because I work primarily, and I did a bit of frozen before I came to Iceland, but I work primarily in own label and chilled, and own label and chilled and other retailers, it can be quite ballsy, but you've always
Hmm.
got the shrink and you've only got a week to sell it or 2 weeks to sell it, depending on the product. So actually, with frozen, the luxury is we haven't got 2 weeks to sell it. We've got 9 months if it's got bacon. We've got a year if it's English. So we can be a little bit ballsy and we can go, well, actually we can take a punt on this product. We all believe in it. It
Yeah.
might not be quite bullseye, but yeah, no, I mean, I wouldn't. I'll be honest. For me, I wouldn't really like to be in chilled at the moment because I think
Right.
it's tough out there, and people aren't spending as much money, and especially in the next 6 months, they're not going to be spending as much money. So I think for me, that ballsiness, we can still grab that and not let go of it. Is
Right.
probably
Okay.
my best answer for that one.
Okay. Interesting. How do you, either kind of personally or as a business, sort of assess the level of risk within individual pieces of MPD while still developing them? How do you kind of think, right, this is pretty high risk but might be spectacular versus probably low risk but not going to kind of really change the
Set the
category
world on.
dynamics?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I mean, that seems like a simple question, and it is a simple question, but um, so we've got there's a whole matrix of what we'd like to go after and what we'd like to hold and what we'd like to kind of keep, if that makes any sense. So it's almost like a red, amber, green. Go
Hmm.
after that in green, amber, stay still, red. We're not. We'll shrink that and make it work harder. So luckily, and I've spoke about our customer and it. When we go in and we're signing off products and we're looking at products, everybody's kind of on the same page, which is really good, and everybody's getting used to going, yeah, are we going to do that product? It's a bit of a wild card. It's not really right for this time. Doesn't mean to say we
Right.
won't do it, but we kind of sitting around the table and when we're signing, and the people who sign it off, which is me and my boss, and then ultimately the board and everyone else, everybody's got quite a similar mindset and they kind of know what will sell and what won't.
Right.
But the wild cards and everyone else, sometimes, because we're frozen, we can take a punt on it. But it is that bullseye. It's that bullseye mentality, and that's the best way I can describe it. So yeah, we're staying. It's not the case we're going to turn into a risk-averse business, because that's never going to happen, to be fair.
Okay. And in this current kind of climate of inflation, which is obviously pressuring the supply base as well as you guys and the consumers, are you seeing manufacturers being a little bit more cautious in the type of stuff that they're coming to you with, or are they kind of still feeling confident when it comes to launching NPD with Iceland?
That's a good question, and I think it depends on what category you're talking about, to be fair.
Right.
And how the categories have performed. And I think that question for me could be answered in two. If the category's not performing, then we either go after it, or the supplier will come in and they probably will be a little bit safer. But that's for us to kind of try and work out and go, well, actually, we don't want to be safe in this category. We need to kind of get it back to where it was if it hasn't been performing. So we'll look at it as a category by category basis. But we're definitely not trying to be. To answer your question, I'm not seeing a level of, oh well, we're only seeing very safe products, and we go out, we physically go out and kind of, so I've had the pleasure of working at other retailers and in manufacturing. So we used to get the brief, decipher it when we were in manufacturing, and then go in with the ideas. Whereas here, we almost give them lists of ideas that we want. So they're coming in with stuff that we've asked for anyway, and then they obviously put their interpretation on it. So that's in key areas. That's kind of what we do.
Right. Okay. That's interesting. And what from a kind of a behaviors perspective, I guess, in terms of how you develop products, what sort of things, or what one thing do you do differently now than when you started at Bakkavor 15 years ago?
See, that is a really good question, and I probably answered it in a way before, but this is going to sound really crap, and I'm sorry for the trends people, and some of them are my very dear friends. So I used to look at trends and look at what's happening, in these trends, and go, right, we have to do that. That sounds amazing. We have to do that. When actually the guys who are giving you the trends aren't telling you to do it. They're just telling you what's going on in the world. And I think I fell into the trap of going, oh my God, it's on this email, and we have to do it because everybody's going to do it. Well, actually, we don't have to do it. You don't have to do it. You don't have to go away and go, right, we're going to do a Filipino belly pork, or we're going to go away and do a Korean kalbi, or you just don't have to do it. What you have to do is go, right, well, that's happening there, but what are people buying? What's happening in the high street? What are we seeing and what have we seen in previous years? And we've had presentations from, we're lucky enough, I keep in touch with the suppliers of the manufacturers, and we had one in Newlywed a couple of weeks ago, and they did an amazing presentation, and they showed us one or two left field, but they showed us bang on what they think is going to happen in the next 12 months, and to be fair, they were more right than wrong, in my opinion, and they gave us some real food for thought. So yeah, it was it's a bit of a weird one, but so I suppose what I think now is I don't chase after the dream. I'd rather be a little bit more realistic and go listen to customer, and I'm a big fan and an advocate of Vypr, so that tool in itself is invaluable for me, and it's one of the first things I ask is what the customers want, whether it's on a simple mince pie top, or it's on a ready meal, or a meat joint that we're going to do that's got a 15-20 quid price tag on. We've got to get that info and make sure it's the right for the. So it's listening to the customer much more than ever. Listen to a developer in a head office somewhere going, we have to do this because I ate it 2 weeks ago with my best friend. Like, okay, that's really. So that probably not the best explanation, and a bit wayward.
I get it. I get it.
It's not vanity. It's definitely customer. Yeah.
Okay.
And what I do very differently now.
Right. Okay. And do you see much evidence of it? Is the development process very different to when you first started, or is it broadly the same set of steps that not you guys particularly, but the sector is going through when they're developing products?
Right. The process and packaging team are going to hate me for this comment. Right. So everybody's still doing stage and gate, and I know Bill will kind of and actually listening to Bill the last time we were together was kind of, it made me smile and jump for joy so much, because manufacturing has adopted this stage and gate, and retailers have adopted this stage and gate, but it's so kind of entrenched in times and everyone else, so it makes it's almost like wading through swamp just to get to the end of it. And
right,
that, to me, I think we're still doing that, and I think I don't know what the answer is, to be fair. I'm a chef who comes up with ideas basically and kind of manages this place, but getting the process much more slicker and more able to bend and more agile, rather than go, we have to hit gate 1 at this time, we have to get gate 2 at this time, we have to, and if you don't hit gate 3, you're not going to launch. But it's still at best 42, 45 weeks long, which is, in my eyes, is way too long to do stuff. The likes of Albert Heijn, and I spoke about this. They do a month. They've got a 4-week program where they see stuff on the 1st and it's launched by the end of the month, and they put a team on that. That's just, the packaging has to be simple and the products kind of have to be ready, but any retailer that can launch stuff in 4 weeks is just amazing. And I just think that's kind of what we're doing wrong. We're still doing the same thing that we did when I joined the industry 15 years ago.
Right,
Nothing's really moved on.
Okay, interesting. So you're referring to Bill Hart there, who's a very big advocate of agile development processes, and he co-authored the Agile Innovation book with me. So there's a definite opportunity for that kind of flexibility, I think, in terms of process. I think there's a role for stage gate for sure with certain types of product development, but I think the Albert Heijn example is very good. At times you need to react very quickly and get things to market very quickly.
And I think if you don't hit the zeitgeist and the idea a year before, which is very difficult to do in anybody's mindset, you've kind of missed the boat a little bit. So I think being able to react a lot quicker and land stuff a lot quicker will help innovation, because you're not going, oh, well, it's going to take a year before you do it. Well, actually, if you could launch it, test it, get it out there and go, well, actually, it worked, it didn't work, get it back. What's the next thing? What can we do that's going to kind of land and be successful with customers?
So thinking forward 3, 4, 5 years, something like that, assuming that you're still working in the industry, what if you were in full control of how a retailer would develop products, what do you think? What's going to be different in a few years' time in terms of process, in terms of technology, in terms of output within innovation?
Well, it's funny. So that question is kind of, I laughed at first and I thought, oh my God, I'm kind of hoping what am I hoping? I'm hoping I'm in the Shetland Islands on a farm somewhere, retired, but that's probably not going to happen. Living a very simple life. That's definitely not going to happen. But it does have. I do love the West Coast and right up the north of Scotland. I think it's an amazing place, and I'm lucky enough to spend some time there. But what do I think is going to happen? If I was in control of it, I think platforms are massively going to. This is just my opinion. I think platforms are massively going to change. I think they are changing. I think the era of the massive hyperstore is kind of gone. I think people will, even in the bricks and mortar, I think there'll be more and more channels coming out of that, with the likes of Uber getting on board and getting in there. The online, I think shop and go is going to shrink, and I think if you're not ready and you're not on that kind of platform, I think you're going to struggle. But I think technology. You just look at the vegan category. I mean, they're doing amazing things there every 6 months, and I really and once the other categories wake up to that, because you look at a burger. A normal burger, it's probably been put through a VMAG since VMAGs were invented, and it's probably been through a mince plate. Is there other ways to do that more successfully? there's got to be other ways. Pizza's kind of made in the same way, and maybe pizza needs to be made in the same way. But there's, I think the industry and especially the manufacturers, because the retailers don't really have any say over what investment they can manufacturers put into.
Yeah.
But I really do think that they could other sectors could really do with looking at vegan, just to kind of say, well, how are these guys doing, changing every 6 months and moving forward and finding new technologies? Why can't we? So I think that's one small aspect of it. I think platforms will change. I think gone are the days of the massive big store, and I think people are getting more savvy about shopping online. And I think online, although we've seen a little drop in online, but no, we're still way above where we were post COVID. But I just think I think people are getting more savvy and more. I mean, how many Amazon boxes do you get in a week?
Too many.
I had 2 last night, and I've got another 2 coming today. It's just I mean, this has changed everything. You can kind of just do what you can get what you want when you want. I think the age of convenience is massively going to. I think it'll massively increase, because I think people are losing time. They haven't got as much money, and I mean, this will help them check prices instantly. Rather than having to drive to a Morrison's, an Aldi, a Lidl, a Tesco, or wherever they shop. They just go online and just do it there. And then they'll go. I think but convenience definitely for me, and different platforms is probably what I see in the next 5 years.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I think the plant-based market is fascinating, actually, because they are highly R&D and scientific led in terms of their equivalent of innovation. So that it's a lot of kind of manufacturing and process innovation as opposed to product iteration and packaging iteration. I think there's a lot that the rest of the sector can learn from plant-based at the moment. Very
definitely. I mean, if you look back in the last probably 10 years, packaging's relatively the same. Ready meals package. I mean, there's a few nice packaging, in some different brands and stuff. But when you look at it, it's still PET. It's still film sealed. It's still, you still put it in the microwave or you put it in the oven. It's just been the same for such a long time. Burgers still look the same. They may have a different card and sleeve on it, but they don't look any different. It is that alliteration of the same thing. And there's that old adage, the same thinking gets the same results, which is a paraphrase from something else. And it's basically just a circular thing. Well, I suppose if you invest 10 million in a factory and it can only do that, you're not going to change it 2 years later to do something else, are you?
I mean? Absolutely.
So,
Okay. And that's one of the kind of the main principles of Agile, is that the manufacturing part of the sector is in many ways it's lacking the flexibility to kind of be completely agile, because as you say, if you've spent 10 million quid kind of producing products in a certain way, in a certain shape, at a certain speed, etc., you're not going to be able to just bin all that and pivot and change. So that is, it's one of the kind of the elements of rigidity, should we say, I think, in the supply chain that could.
Well, I think there isn't. I think that came from maybe 10, 15 years ago, or whenever it was. And you look at, I mean, there's a manufacturer who I did some work with, and I've got some amazing friends there and everyone else. But they built the biggest sandwich factory in the UK.
Right.
And they spent X amount of money, and they put hairdressers and a gym, and it is an amazing site, but it does skillet sandwiches. And it doesn't really do much else. And I'm thinking, you spent all that money, and that's the only thing you can kind of do. It just, it's like, why not have some diversity in there, and why not have some? But I mean, it's way before my time. But I just think that's a really good example of where retail was at. They wanted bigger and bigger and bigger to service growing retailers, and they needed that. But there's no flexibility and no agileness in there, which I really think we need to look at in the future. But sure. that was a very long answer for a very short question.
No, good. Very interesting. Let's just talk product for a minute or two. What, I guess, kind of a negative example and a positive example. So, what's been your biggest kind of disappointing or frustrating product launch in the last couple of years, and what did you learn from it, I guess?
Oh, see, that is a really difficult question.
I'm making the assumption that
Because
there
to be
have been
honest,
disappointing product launches.
no,
you,
no. Actually, do you know some? And this is going to sound, and it'll be easy to tell the retailer, but the biggest. I was really proud of this product, and my boss at the time was very proud of this product as well. But I worked for I partly worked for the manufacturer and the retailer, and it was a Heston product,
right.
and we wanted to do this ponzu dressing and a vanilla mayonnaise. And we're like, and this kind of goes back to we were listening to ourselves rather than listening to customers.
Right.
So we made it. It tasted amazing. We went through the whole development, got Heston to sign it off, and it was amazing. We were putting cayenne to add a little bit of savouriness, and we did the ponzu, and we shipped in fresh frozen yuzu from Japan, and it tasted the two products tasted amazing. We were like, oh my god, this is amazing. It sold nothing. It had something like a 300% minus 300. But so basically, they had to make for instance, they had to make 100 tons or well, not 100 tons. They had to make 3-ton batches in the Corona to make the mayonnaise or whatever it was.
Right. Okay.
And they were only bottling half of that. So that other half of that mayonnaise basically went in the bin, and then they put it on shelf. And to be fair, no one told anybody about it. And it sold. In fact, I don't even think it sold. I think it sold about 20, 30 products. Yeah, it was ridiculous. It was so that was probably my most disappointing time, because we were like, oh my god, this is and I will mention him, Mr. Nugent. Mr. Neil Nugent, and we did it, and we were like, oh my god, these are amazing. These are the best dressings and the best mayonnaise anybody will ever do, and it sold nothing.
Right. Interesting.
So that is definitely my most disappointing time.
Right, okay.
So not everything that glitters is gold, to put it that way.
Yeah. And then conversely, what's the best product launch that you've seen in it doesn't have to be in Iceland, but in the market over the last year or two? What's the thing that you've seen or been responsible for and thought, yeah, that's really, really, really impressive?
That is a tricky one, because there's lots of great products out there. There is a ton of great products. I'm probably the one I'm really actually, and I could ream off a dozen products. There's some products I ate from M&S the other week there that a guy I know developed them, and they were amazing, James, and they were stunning. The flavors were just nailed. Price was a bit pricey, but amazing products. But actually, the one I'm really most proud of, and it's about longevity and that kind of thing. Oh, there's two actually. There's one really simple one, and it's still in. I shouldn't really say it, but it's still in a retailer now after 10 years, still on shelf. And I'm thinking, oh my god, it's still there. And I keep looking at the back of the pack, and they haven't changed it. It's still there. It's a simple salad, and it keeps coming back every year. And and a dear friend of mine developed it, and every time I go in that certain retailer, it's got an orange door. That's probably the best way I can describe it. So I kind of go in there, but for me, in the last, so we developed, so we were putting miso in burgers, and we were like, I got challenged with finding what's the next miso. So there's a thing in Japan called it's translated to, the nickname is Tasty Paste, which is shiokoji, and shiokoji is the start of miso, start of soy. It's the start of everything. But we found this, but it's high in starch and sugar because it's rice based. It's koji rice. So there's a company in Japan that have distilled it so it doesn't burn, and they put it in liquid form. So I had the idea, we put it in a turkey crown for Christmas. We put it in there, and I can honestly say it's about flavor for me. That product is about. I mean, it's everybody's got a turkey crown. It's just a turkey crown, and we've tried many. We've put oranges and lemons and truffle butter, and and we've brined it, and we've done this and everything else. But putting the koji in the brine, and 4 years later, it's still there. It's still selling really well, and it keeps getting up every year, and it's won a few awards. And it's not the most exciting product in the world, and it only comes around once a year. But actually, just having that spark of idea to go, it's funny. So I found koji, we made it here, and then 2 days later, once it came in and we were tasting it, going, this is just amazing. The supplier walked in and went, oh, we make that from Japan, and we're like, I'll have that. thank you very much. And we did some
Right.
trials on it, and we got this, and I think amazingly moist, tasty, delicious turkey that you wouldn't even know the koji's in there, because you shouldn't.
Right.
It's just, and turkey needs all the help it can get, and that to me is a really simple example of someone challenges you to do stuff, and then you find something, and then you implement it in a way that people actually don't know it's there, but it delivers what you need it to deliver, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
I mean, I could have named a few showy ones where different, like our, what do you call it, our smash dessert that we did, where you poured the hot chocolate on, it looked like a snowflake, and I mean, we've done some great stuff. But actually, that to me, I am because the snowflake's gone and the turkey's still there.
Yeah.
It's that longevity thing, and that little salad from 10, 12 years ago is still going strong. But no, so that's probably that's my favorite product.
Very good. So we've covered a fair few topics now. As we close, we're going to try and close on a positive note, because we've looked at some areas where we think the sector can improve. What do you think the innovation sector does brilliantly that's just not necessarily kind of understood externally or talked about very much?
I think when you see a simple product on shelf, I don't think customers, and why should they? I don't think customers know the amount of effort and research and time that goes into finding that product. And it's not just about the people in retail, it's the people in manufacturing, it's the people at Vypr, it's the people at the food, and I'll mention the food people and blah blah blah. There's a whole industry of people who actually influence that final product, and I mean, the retailers get credit for it, but actually manufacturing, Vypr, food people, all these guys, influence what you're kind of going to do at the end of it. And I don't think just a customer looking at a humble product on shelf I don't think they get the recognition, and I don't think they see that actually there's probably been 100 people touch that product before it gets on the shelf, and someone was thinking about it 12 months previous, because they're thinking 12 months previous, what are you going to buy next summer or next Christmas or next Halloween or next January when you've overdone it and you want to go on a diet. So the minds, I think the customer just goes, oh, that's £1.50, great, oh, it's tasty, or I'm not buying that again. But actually, I don't think the industry gets enough plaudit for the amount of effort and work that goes into it. It goes into just one product, especially manufacturing. To be fair, especially manufacturing.
Yeah, which very much sits in the background, doesn't it? Yeah,
it does, and the suppliers into manufacturing as well. The third-party suppliers. These guys are kind of. We're asking the manufacturers to do it, and then the manufacturers just going out and ask their suppliers to kind of find products and find things so they can land what we've asked them to land. So there's a whole industry behind it. So I think what they do is, or what the industry does is a very joined up and a very collaborative way, and I don't think customers see that, to be fair. I think they just think it's someone in a kitchen making it up and putting it in a pot.
Yeah,
which it clearly is.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Very good. Well, unfortunately, David, we have run out of time. It's been a fascinating discussion. Thank you very much for giving up your time, first of all.
That's quite all right.
Quite
all right.
I enjoy every time you and I discuss the industry. There's always some very good views exchanged. So, David, thank you very much indeed.
I think you enjoy other times than we get together, Ben. I don't think it's just these times. I think it's more of the time when we're sitting in the pub talking about the very same thing, to be fair, which is about weird when you think about it. But yeah, no, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it, and I'm glad I could come and see you today and have a chat. And you could hopefully, I mean, when you said it was very very insightful, I'm not so sure about that, but yeah. Thank you very much.
We'll let the listeners judge, but yeah. Thank you, David. Thank you for your time, and thank you for the listeners to giving up their time for the another episode of the Innovate Podcast. We'll see you on the next episode. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thanks, Ben.